Happy Thursday! Welcome to the Scoop World Order. We have a massive show tonight. We have the two biggest insiders on the Michigan scandal joining forces tonight. So we've been dying to get this thing together. We're going to get into it. As always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, subscribe, also click that little alert bell. I'm going to toss our store link into the deal. This is some of the merch that we have. The Buckeye Scoop National Championship hoodie is absolutely fantastic. Again, I'll get a more full shot for you guys, but oh my God, is this stuff nice. Carhartt, we got the American flag on the side. Spectacular. So I will put the link in the chat and also in our bio if you guys want to jump into the store, because we're reopening it because we had so many people that said they wanted gear. So we are doing that for you guys. So again, we appreciate all you guys that bought gear. It was our biggest drop we've ever had. But the stuff is just incredible quality. So again, I appreciate our partner for doing such a great job. The stuff is really nice. You guys are gonna wear it a lot, wear it proudly, because it is some sick looking stuff. I'm super excited about that. So again, I appreciate all you guys that are on here. I'm gonna get right into this because I do not want to keep Premier Drum and Nevadabuck joining forces. This is like DC Universe and Marvel making a movie of Superman and Batman fighting together versus the Avengers. So hey, I appreciate your time, my man. How are you tonight? And I'm gonna let you get right into what's brought you along in this.
Oh man, I'm doing so well. This is thank you guys for having me. This has been a interesting adventure. Certainly, last summer, last spring, I guess, when we really jumped in and joined a couple of the other guys at 11 Warriors and trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Had no idea it would bring us here, but it's been a great ride and really entertaining year and a half or so.
Yeah, Nevada, I'm gonna let you run this thing, so go ahead because I know that you're dying to get into the weeds of this. So Nevada, have at it, baby.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Premier Drum is one of the few guys that I listen to on this scandal that's actually got some stuff. Him and Spiro are two guys that are doing the work. I'm not saying that they know everything or that they're perfect or that they're somehow the great oracles of the future, but they clearly have information. And I've been doing this long enough, and I've been digging on this story long enough that we wanted to bring him on the show. I know they post primarily on 11 Warriors, which is kind of a competing site, this, but we don't really view it that way. But I think they do. But we just want to recognize excellence when it's there because you've been doing great work on the story. I'm really interested to know how you got looped into that. Like how like for Kirk and I, we do this for a living. We're working on the Ohio State beat. We're doing this stuff, but you've kind of come out of nowhere and been kind of a leader on this story. And I'm just really curious, how did you get lured into this vortex of madness? And you know where did it all begin, and how did you get to this point?
So, stupidity and not knowing when to stop is the short answer. Uh, no, it all started. I had a long career in TV news here in Columbus. 2 years at Channel 6, 11 years or so at Channel 10. And until I, jumped out of media, I worked in TV in Columbus, running the assignment desk in the newsroom, which is not super glamorous and it's really stressful, but you talk to people, you make contacts. That's your whole job is figuring out what's going on, figuring out what's worth covering, and then figuring out how to cover it. And have been out of TV since 2018. Um, Also a huge Ohio State fan, right? And so I got really confused when the scandal broke, right? Whatever it was, late October, early November, and it was huge. And there was all these unprecedented steps being taken by everybody, by the NCAA, by the Big Ten. Um, and then everyone, we had that like couple weeks where every night Pete Thamel or Ross Dellinger or whatever were coming out with new stories. And then, they shifted things around. Connor Stallions got put on leave. And then the season just kind of kept going and things got really quiet. And into the spring, they went on and won with the big asterisk, the national championship. And the story just went away. And I remember it was that night I was sitting on my couch, probably had some bourbon in my hand, and I started texting some people I met, from my years in TV, like, what happened here? Like, what's really going on? Um, and that opened some doors and kept developing the new contacts and new information. And then a few months later, I hopped onto this 11 Warriors. Like, I'd never been an Ohio State message board guy unless there was like a banned sub forum, right? Like I can't talk X's and O's that well. That's not really my thing. I love watching it. I found 11 Warriors, and I started just engaging with some of the guys there, and talking to some guys behind the scenes there, and then posting, kind of working together what we found, and just kind of kept driving. And as things went on, you start getting more information, you start getting a bigger network. Nevada and I started talking a few months ago behind the scenes on a couple things I was trying to suss out. And kind of the brotherhood of what they call in 11 Warriors the four horsemen of posters over there, who all are really plugged in and bring a lot of different information, different perspectives into it. We just kept pushing forward, and it's not driven out of anything of ego. Nobody's getting rich off of this. A lot of us have had incidents where some of the fans from up north don't like our work, and have pulled some social media shenanigans, and there's been some police reports filed and some things, but we just want to know the truth, right? At this point, we want to know what happened, because people who I think are really great people, like Coach Ryan Day, like they're victims in this. Like, yes, missing out on bonus money, missing out on Big Ten titles, all that is big. But, you have state media up there who is still dug in on a story that Zach Smith made up about, about his brother, about Ryan Day's brother being behind all this. And so their reaction, I think, inspired a lot of us to keep going and keep pushing further and further for that truth. And that's, at the end of the day, like, the sanctions are going to come, the committee's going to make a decision, and plenty of people aren't going to be happy with it. I think it's the folks up north. But more than anything, man, we just want to figure out what happened, and how can we figure out how to keep something like that from happening again.
Well, you've kind of staked out the ground, and I'm summarizing a great deal of work, and like you said, there's four guys kind of at 11 Warriors kind of working on this. They all have kind of different perspectives, different contacts, different perspectives, which is to be expected when you're covering a story like this, because depending on who you talk to, you're going to get a different opinion or a different input or a different insight or whatever it might be. You've been kind of more aligned with our thinking on this, that these sanctions and this is going to be a serious matter. Where, again, and I don't want to put words in the mouth of some of the other people there, but there's various degrees of opinion regarding how this thing's going to end up. So I guess my question to you is, based upon what you know now, or what you believe you know now, um, where do you think this ends up? I mean, how do you what if you had to guess? And again, it's a guess, and I want to make sure that we're clear for everybody that's out there listening. We're not we're not savant, we're not on the committee, we're not inside the committee room. It's like a jury. There's been a trial, I use with air quotes, and it's gone to the jury, and then the jury's got to decide. We're not in the jury room, we're not the pizza guy or the bailiff looking in the thing, but we have information about what's been going on. But what's your thoughts regarding where do they end up? Because that's what people really want to. People want to know. Look, this has been this incredible story that the Tony Petiti's called unprecedented, and you've had heck, Sonny Dykes came out today, and was calling for big time punishment and the like. But where do you think it? If I had to say, okay, Premier Drum, make your call right now on June, whatever the heck it is, how do you think that this thing ends up? What do you think the final call is? What's your final answer to that question?
I'm going to answer it in a second. But before that, a really good exercise that I think has helped me when I've started out, because once this went to the committee, it becomes unknowable, right? We've been reporting, what we've been told was placed on the table early. It was last July 25th, I think 25th or 26th. I was teaching band camp, right? And started getting texts about this partial draft NOA that was being shared with some reps from Michigan to initiate discussions for a negotiated resolution, which is how 98 point something percent of NCAA infractions cases are resolved. It is very unusual for a case, especially a case against an institution, not just an individual, to make it all the way to a committee hearing. It's not anywhere that anybody wants to be, because it becomes unknowable. So, we had what we kind of broke and talked about as the framework, which was, some collection of vacation of victories. And there were some subsets in there. Is it every game the Stallions was on staff? Is it every game against a team that they advanced scouted, which I think is probably what I would anticipate it going. Non-recognition at the NCAA level of both the Big Ten titles and the College Football Playoff Championship, which would then put the balls into those organizations' court to strip those titles if they decided to do that. So multi-year postseason ban. I think, at the time it was framed as what would effectively be a lifetime ban from college football for Jim Harbaugh. So that's what we were told was on the table way back last July. The second this goes to the committee, it's unknowable. These are, a small group of people who are all, very intelligent, very well connected, and at least some have probably suffered at least a peripheral effect of this scandal, right? This touched enough programs. Somebody on that panel probably has some sort of a connection to a school or an organization who felt the impact of it. But for me, and I was having this debate with a buddy the other night, before we talk about my guess, forget everything that 11 Warriors has reported. Forget everything that Nevadabuck has reported. Forget everything that Spiro has reported. Just look at the publicly available facts in this case, the absolute facts that have been reported that have not been refuted, right? Nothing that we've said innuendo or insiders giving us information. When this broke, we had completely unprecedented steps by the NCAA to disclose a newly opened investigation that they had a full investigative file on already to a conference. They went to the Big Ten and they said, we just found out this is happening. They gave the Big Ten access to that evidence. We know that. Commissioner Petiti then went public, by going to the schools and sending that letter publicly, went public with the newly opened NCAA investigation. That's an unprecedented step, right? So take that, put it on a shelf for a second. Between that first draft review being shared with Michigan to consider some options for a negotiated resolution and the first day of their committee hearing, 318 days passed. That's 45 weeks that these two parties had the opportunity to come together and come to an agreement. Because, like I said, we know that nobody wants to go before the committee. That didn't happen. 318 days with no resolution. And that, we know there are multiple legal teams involved. Take that, put it on a shelf for a second. The university doesn't refute the charges. We know that's public because they leaked, a small portion of their 137-page NOA response to Pete Thamel. And they say, this happened. We think there's this technicality that only the 8 games that were scouted by a University of Michigan employee should count. So you're massively overcharging us. It's wrong. They don't have any understanding of how agency works. But that's in the public record, right? And then the last couple months, we've had this intentional disinformation and misdirection from the media up north who have really focused in on this, this 2-game suspension, for Coach Moore, and maybe 4 games. We're arguing that and a fine. And for weeks, media up there framed that as, this is what we're talking about to resolve this process. Well, then it comes out that it's not Michigan's reps that are leading those discussions. It's reps for Coach Moore. And that's only specifically connected to his singular level 2 charge for deleting his 52 text messages with Connor Stallions, right? So looking at just those facts that we just went over, how do you look at that and say, this is going to be a slap on the wrist, right? I don't know how a reasonable person looks at that, takes off their blue glasses, their scarlet glasses, their green glasses, whatever. Looking at that from a factual perspective, there's a pretty clear idea of what should happen, So you're asking me what I think will happen, in several weeks when we get this, when this answer comes down. Where I come back to is some form of vacation or no contest for the 21 through 23 seasons that was against a program that the master spreadsheet says Michigan advanced scouted with the scheme. That seems straightforward. If you go look through the last 3 years of negotiated resolutions on the NCAA's legislative database, you see they vacate games all the time. In the last 6 weeks, I think there's been 4 or 5 cases that were all negotiated resolutions and that were all self-reported, where they vacated games because they involved ineligible players. And that's a distinction people keep trying to draw is, well, they only vacate games for ineligible players. Well, that's not true. That's not in the bylaws anywhere. That's the only way you can. The reason you see it so much is because those are most of the cases that the NCAA deals with. They're ineligible players in cases where universities cooperated and self-reported, right? Those things didn't happen in this investigation. So I think that happens. I do expect a non-recognition of the 21 through 23 Big Ten titles and the 23 college football playoff national championship. I anticipate both of those things are the reason that negotiated resolution never happened in those 318 days. They don't want to give those up. But if this scheme was bad enough to break precedent, to warn everybody, in the conference that this was happening, to warn the public that this was happening, by some reports to give Michigan State the chance to just pull out of the game and not play it, how do you go from the scheme is that bad and that detrimental? And Commissioner Petiti actually mentioned not only the integrity of the game being an issue, but concerns over player safety. How does it go from being that serious that we have to break all precedents to issue this warning and then go to, well, we're going to let the victory stand? So that I feel pretty safe in that. And I will absolutely own if I'm wrong. I know you all know who I am, right? So you can come find me and laugh at me. I don't expect Coach Moore to be the coach. I think he's pretty well set up to be the fall guy. And even the way his contract was structured when they finally got him signed last year, after it came out in USA Today that he didn't have a contract, it makes that pretty easy. His buyout is quite affordable. And I'm still expecting probably a 2-year postseason ban. I know there are people that want more. And I think that if it weren't for, the vacation or switch to no contest of those games and the non-recognition of the titles, I think Michigan would accept a 2-year ban, a show cause for Moore and all the other guys. I think they'd walk away with that saying, we still get to keep our t-shirts that we bought at Walmart that says we want it all, right? We get to hang on to those. We're in good shape. So with every caveat that I am happy to be wrong, this is an unknowable outcome as things sit with the committee. Having worked on this now for this long, that's my expectation. And I know that to some people it sounds crazy, but looking at those core facts that aren't disputed, it's not an outlandish scenario.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, and I honestly don't want to talk much of the show because I think that this has been fantastic so far. So Nevada, I'll let you do the follow up stuff because again, this is just excellent work.
Yeah, I'd say that, I mean, we're almost in perfect alignment, on this, and I have the similar expectations, and I've been talking to a pretty good source, from Indy, really good source from Indy, that's been saying the same things. And the thing for me, I'll add one thing. I'll add in, and this is not something that escaped you. I'll just throw this into the thing, but we talk about, the Michigan guys really latched themselves onto it. You can only vacate games or forfeit games with ineligible players, and that's completely false. Like that's just made up. When they use the word unprecedented, it's because there's no precedent. This is unprecedented. That doesn't mean that it's going to go unpunished, or it's going to. But nobody's ever had this collection of level one violations, non-cooperation, and repeat offender. That's the holy trinity of badness right there. And you when you talked about recent cases, because I've been studying, poring over all the recent cases and recent decisions from the NCAA. And while I think people can review them and reach whatever interpretation they want. I'm looking at it like, these things feel pretty draconian to me. These feel like pretty harsh decisions that the NCAA is doing, and these are for self-reported cooperative institutions that are going through this, and they're vacating wins. They're getting 5 years. They're throwing out multi-year show causes like it's Halloween candy now. And so I'm with you. I don't know how Moore I don't know how Moore doesn't get a minimum of a 1-year suspension on this thing. And I think that you can't have your football coach be 1 year suspended. So I think he's got to be gone. I don't see how he makes it. I mean, he just destroyed that text message chain the day that they announced the investigation. I mean, it was clearly an effort on top of Stallion's efforts, on top of Partridge's efforts, on top of Harbaugh's efforts to destroy, to deflect, to keep people from cooperating with this investigation. And I just, for me, I just keep coming back to, I know what I've been told internally, but all the public facts, and I thought you did a great job reciting everything that we know publicly is consistent with an enforcement entity and an institution, that there's a great divide between what they think is an acceptable punishment. And that's the only reason why that there would not have been a negotiated resolution. Anybody who thinks that there was not a negotiated resolution because Michigan wouldn't agree to 4 games for Sharon Moore instead of 2 games is out of their mind. They would have done that deal in 14 seconds and moved on. Or somebody said, "Oh, there's going to be a fine and a 2-week recruiting restriction and this that." Like, are you guys crazy? No rational person would put their hands or put their fate into the hands of this committee over a couple of games for Sharon Moore. That's just not logical, and it doesn't meet the fact pattern of, you said 98.6. I think it's maybe even be higher than that. I mean, these things do not go to full hearing very often. They just don't. And I think for the NCAA, if you throw on top of all of these things, the fact that the NCAA is fighting for their very survival right now. I mean, the NCAA, if they do not make an example out of Michigan, if they do not come down with some sort of strict punishment, um, it seems like every day another coach is calling for this. And like I said, I mentioned the Sonny Dykes thing. Sonny Dykes came out today. If you guys haven't seen the article, came out and said, "Hey, you've got to punish this stuff because otherwise it's the Wild West, and if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, and everybody's just going to say that the heck with the rules." So people they're crying out for some sort of strict authority to come in and right the wrongs. And the NCAA, these are people too. They understand that they're fighting for their very survival as well. So I think Michigan picked a really bad time to be that case. And the fact that it's an unprecedented case, and we know that because that's not you just saying it, that's not me saying it. That was in the Tony Petitti letter. The fact that they did stuff that they've never done before, suspend a coach for 3 games, arguably the 3 most important games in the regular season, in the middle of an undefeated run to the national championship. I mean, if they don't punish Michigan, then Michigan should sue Tony Petitti for screwing with their season in 2023, because what in the world was he doing? I mean, if this wasn't that serious, why would the NCAA go to the Big Ten? The Big Ten does not have an investigative arm. People don't realize the Big Ten doesn't, the NCAA is the investigative arm for the Big Ten. They don't have, 19 ex FBI guys doing it. All they got was the information the NCAA provided to them, and it was enough for him to write the letter. And when Tony Petitti wrote the letter, I don't think enough people have gone back and read the letter, because I think there's a lot of foreshadowing in that of what's to come. And I agree with one of your partners over there, Leavenworthsboro, Ohio, in terms of saying he thinks the Big Ten's done with this. I agree. I think the only thing left for the Big Ten to do is to vacate the Big Ten titles. I think that's their only action item after the NCAA gets done with them. So I don't think, for me, I don't think there's a bad thing. I don't think it's like the Big Ten's passing on it. I just think they've done what they can do. It's up to the NCAA to make a stand, to do what they're going to do. And like I said, if we're wrong on this one, look, you've been wrong. I've been famously wrong. They know how to get to me as well. I'm not hard to find. They
No.
can do that, and I'll stand up and I'll be like, it was just wrong. Just, hey, I'll own it. But I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong on this one. I think I got this one. I know it's unknowable what a jury's going to do, what some people are going to do, but I think I've got a pretty good handle on what they were asking, on what people feel like is proper for something like this. And I completely agree with you. I think the bridge too far for Michigan was the national title. Losing that
Mhm.
national title in 2023 was like, that was their red line. That was their line in the sand.
Yep.
They could not accept that, because you can imagine the crazies in the Michigan, if after telling all these people for all this time, this is no big deal, this is a nothing burger, and all of a sudden they voluntarily vacate the national championship. I mean, the Premier Drum, tell me, how would that have gone if they'd have done something like that?
Whew. Yeah, and I think something that you mentioned the letter, and I go back and read it periodically. I've read it a lot, um, and I just a few weeks ago I was reading it, and there's one line in there where they actually describe the scheme as cheating. They use that word, and it's so obvious that in that letter they were working to not say that, right? They wanted to sound diplomatic. This is fact based. We found that you are doing this, the scheme, the impermissible scheme. There's one line where they call it cheating, but I think you read that letter, you go back and read the report last August from the negotiated resolution that Michigan reached on the recruiting violations, and you put those two together and you compare them. And I think it's pretty clear how one sets up the other. And then you have to consider that, in the NCAA decision tree, you have mitigating factors in each infractions case, and you have aggravating factors. Mitigating factor, let's see, you self-report. You don't have a history of serious violations. You cooperate with the investigation. Um, Aggravating factors. You're a repeat offender, right? You have a recent history of serious level 2 and level 1 violations. You fail to cooperate. So looking at those, I'm just going back and looking at some of the other cases and how they spell out and link each specific aggravating and mitigating factor to the bylaw and say this is word for word what you violated, or word for word what you did that made us late in your result a little bit because you displayed exemplary cooperation. You mentioned the deleted text, and so we heard about that, and I believe it was Spiro who broke that, right? um, which was huge. And then the first excuse that Coach Moore gave, that I was just so mad that someone could do that to our program. Like, that was his quote. That's what he said. He was so mad that someone would do that to their program that his first reaction was to delete the text history. I've been mad at people before, pretty laid back, but like I've been mad before. I've never been like, I've got to delete those text messages. Not because I'm guilty of anything, but I'm just so mad, right? So we have that. And then they said, well, we recovered them, which they sounded like they did it willingly, but they had to go back and recover them to put them into evidence. And they said, well, they're innocuous. And we really can't wait to release them because it just shows how much you guys are blowing this out of proportion. Oh, but here's a text between Coach Moore and Connor Stallions setting up the meeting with the quarterbacks coach from CMU. And then it seems like maybe Connor Stallions was caught cosplaying as a CMU coach in Spartan Stadium wearing Ray-Ban recording sunglasses at night. But yeah, he just deleted them because he was so mad. And so the lack of cooperation, like, and it's funny, and I think that this is played out in a way that if you took this script to any studio in Hollywood and said, we want to make this movie, they'd say, you're ridiculous, this is completely unbelievable. And so we laugh these things off, right? But now we've reached the point where it's time for decisions to be made, and these were real infractions. And as funny as it may be to look at those pictures of Connor like dodging away from the cameras there on the sideline in his CMU coaching gear, like, it's funny. It's good to get a laugh out of it, but it's a serious infraction, right? That's a violation. You had another coach who, got in trouble for coaching kids how to respond to the NCAA. Well, you're not supposed to do that, right? You have, Harbaugh, when he was still there, pulling the coaching staff to go do visits on that Friday afternoon when he had been notified, or excuse me, Friday morning when he had been notified that NCAA enforcement investigators were coming to interview them. Then you have the president and the athletic director publicly thumbing their nose at the NCAA while all this is going on. And I think history will show us it's because they knew what they were being accused of, but they did not know the level of evidence that the NCAA had. Because while they got access to a partial draft back on July 25th or 26th to review, they didn't receive access to all of the supporting evidence files, right? Until they received the formal notice of allegations. And by the time they got that and realized that, well, this wasn't your typical NCAA investigation where they, spent 2 years digging through receipts and interviewing people, they were handed from an internal whistleblower a complete investigative file. This couldn't have landed any more perfectly in the NCAA's lap. And so by the time the university, in my opinion, realized the level of evidence that they had against them, they have pictures and video from all these different stadiums showing people sitting in the seats that were purchased in Connor's name with their phones out the whole time recording the sidelines. They have the digital access logs that show how many other people were able to access that master spreadsheet, right? They have at least some inkling that we know of how this was funded, right? And Nevada, I'm sure you've probably gotten the same kind of pickup, like not something reportable. I don't know if I froze or not. I froze on my screen.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good for us, Premier. I don't know if you can hear this or not. I'm about to come back in.
Oh,
you
there we
sound
go.
good,
And
you
can
look
you guys
good.
hear
You're
me?
moving
Okay.
up. Yeah, everything's fine on our end.
I was working up to something big there.
Oh.
We have all that. Oh shoot! See the freeze? I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. You're probably getting the same indication from things. The NOA still hasn't been released, right? Michigan has done their FOIA office has done the whole, they'll set some arbitrary date. You'll hear from us by this date, and then that date comes, and you don't hear anything until you follow up. And then, since the first records request went in, from me and several other people, and I'm sure like real media and real journalists doing the same thing, their office has never once put out a notice, like a legal reason for why the records are delayed. Like there are legal legal reasons to like, hey, we can't release that right now, and it's totally in the clear. Their only excuse has been, well, we have an unprecedented record number of requests, right? Unprecedented number of requests right now. But we know all those requests are for basically the same thing. And so you get it to one person, you're going to be able to get it to the 200 who have requested it, right? So nobody's seen the NOA and nobody's leaked it because the only people that are leaking things right now, is Michigan. But there are indications that there are at least some things spelled out in the NOA that we haven't caught on to yet, that we haven't heard about.
Nevada.
And I think
Your thoughts.
There we go. I don't know what's going on.
I think we're good. Nevada's in here. Nevada, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, are you surprised that we haven't got the NOA yet? I mean, I'll bury the lead. I'm surprised. I thought that we would have it. I mean, a long time. I'm stunned that it was able to stay under wraps this long. Are you surprised that it hasn't leaked? Or I mean, not given the fact that I know why it hasn't leaked, because it's incredibly damning to Michigan, and the NCAA doesn't want to be, the leaker. But in this era of Freedom of Information Act, and just, people's always wanted to put. So I'm shocked that we have not got a copy of it yet.
So when I was in TV, that was one of my primary responsibilities. You had a regular checklist of public records that you needed to request, that you needed to maintain, you needed to log, which is a really normal part of the job. I still occasionally get coffee with some of the people who were in Columbus Police Records Office back in the day, right? Just because you get to know these people because you talk 2 or 3 times every shift. So naively, I took their FOIA office at their word, even though their costs, somehow they figure up allowable costs that are just beyond anything you would ever imagine. But they gave us a date, and so I'd report, hey, they say we'll hear from them by then, and then that date comes and everybody's mad at you, like, well, you said you were going to have it then, and we just never did. So I am not surprised. What piques my interest is that, we know that their response to the notice of allegations is 137 pages. And their defense isn't any more than, hey, we think we found a loophole and we don't think this is a big deal. So if it took them 137 pages to respond to that thing, I cannot wait to read it. I will buy a bottle of something really nice. I'll put on something really cozy, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it.
Oh god, it'll be like Masterpiece Theater. We should do a show
Yeah,
where we sit and just go through our
smoking
favorite
jackets.
parts. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Like Hugh Hefner. I think something that was really interesting is like the movie thing. I've said that on here. I was like, if you pitched a script and you said, hey, we're gonna have some junior jet guy go and wear spy glasses and leave the Friday function. And I've talked about how like, when I was a coach, like you can't just take Friday night off and go to a game, let alone cost Jim McElwain his job. Let alone, Spiro said that Michigan State has video of them passing the shirt through the
Mhm.
the gate, and I mean, no, it would make the program look like it was like a real life, true to life thing, or any given Sunday. I was like, but that's the stunning thing about this whole thing, and the exemplary cooperation is something that I can't get over the fact that Ward Manuel is still the AD and Sherman, but I feel like part of it now that I've listened to you for 30 or 40 minutes, I think that they're just going to get rid of them all in one fell swoop because if you're the athletic director or the board of trustees or board of regents, whatever, and you agree to vacate the national championship, I mean, your career is over there anyways. I mean, it's suicide. The fan base would go crazy. I mean, you know how we treat our athletic directors around here when and again, and a lot of it's warranted, especially the stuff with Gene where he didn't take the bowl ban. But, what are your thoughts, like, just going forward? Because you've made so many great points. And again, we've requested information from Ohio State before, and we're on like year 3 of waiting for that. So, it doesn't surprise me that Michigan is, I'm sure that they're working around the clock to get us all the stuff that we requested. But do you think that you'll get it, or is it just going to be when it gets released? With the final, not settlement, but I guess when the hammer comes down.
Well, they'll release it because they want to get their money for it, right? They're marking these things up, like their cars during the pandemic. But yeah, it'll be irrelevant by the time it gets out. Something that you're talking about, kind of the fallout and what does the future look like up there. And the fourth horseman at 11 Warriors is one of the more recent guys who really started putting in work. His name's Josh Moon. Check out his work. I don't want to speak for him, but he does incredible work in bringing perspective from the academic side of the university. And he had a series in the last few days of really enlightening posts that talk about there's just a lack of leadership up there, and not as like a slam, like, oh, nobody's deciding to lead, but they don't have a president, right? There are several other key positions that he outlines um, that are vacant. And so when this comes down, when they get that little heads up from the COI that this is your punishment, the press conference is tomorrow morning, I don't know who's going to be there. It's not Ward, right? That's a call that gets made above his head. So who is it that's going to be making that call? And given all of the other pending issues, like we thought, oh my gosh, the Matt Weiss situation is going to totally overshadow the Connor Stallion situation. And they're like, oh, how about some casual bioterrorism, right? Like there's so much going on up there that this kind of becomes a drop in the bucket to them. I really thought they would appeal the second they get the notice. They'll threaten all day long about taking it to court. And as this gets closer, I think both of those scenarios become less and less likely. Let's start the clock on whatever this punishment is now. Let a new leadership structure come in, and then you got to start over. Because even in the athletics department, the Connor Stalions issue was not like, a little pimple on an otherwise exemplary and well-run operation. You have issues in hockey, you have huge issues in basketball, right? And those are just the bigger sports. Like there are issues up there that are caused by a lack of leadership. And I think we saw that at the top every time Santa Ono would, go sniff jock straps and post bet on Twitter, like, you know, these situations, even when they're hard, you need a leader who can make hard decisions, right? And at every chance, and someone who is, close enough to enforcement sent me a quote a while ago, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but I've posted it at the time. But it says, at every opportunity that Michigan had to stop down, make a hard decision, and do the right thing, they decided they wanted to keep winning football games instead, right? And you can get away with that for a while, but eventually those things catch up with you. Um, and I think we're at the very tail end of that cycle now.
Nevada, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be a fresh start. And I think, had Michigan been smart, they would have started the clock last year because last year was a lost season. Um, Before it started, we knew it was a lost season. We were screaming bet, but it was bet the over 3.5 losses for Michigan during the regular season. And yeah, that just seems so chalky. And they would have done well to do that because they could have put a significant part of this.
I think I think Nevada said bet to the dog, and the dog went. It was,
That
I think
was not
Santa,
me. That
is
was
it
that.
oh, was that Premier Drum?
That was
I
Premier
thought
Drum, man.
he's
Don't
got
blame
oh
that. Don't blame my dog.
he's got Santo
He's
Ono
got like
live in his house. He's got Santo Ono live in his house
that's
right now. No
that's that
way.
sound like that sound like Yoko Ono back there or something like that. Just like
Yoko Ono going crazy. Hey, Premier John, we all have dogs that bark on our show. Trust me, it's part of the charm of Buckeye Scoop. We all have dogs that are fighting and biting and barking at each
yeah,
other.
exactly.
So, it's part of our charm,
Yeah,
Premier Drum. That's why
we
we
Oh
have
had
the
man,
biggest
we had
yeah,
the
audience.
German
it's
we
Lot of dog
we had the
lovers on our show, baby.
we had the German Shepherd attack the FedEx guy one time on the show. Remember that, Kirk?
Yeah.
Your
Oh,
German.
my dog was going crazy. It was great. I was
well,
like, yeah, I'll edit that out, but I actually won't. So,
my German Shepherd is she's right here and she's been
uh,
perfect, right? But
uh,
when you heard that barking, our border collie like
uh,
not ran down the stairs, flew down the stairs like she was doing a pro day or something. That was
oh, well,
I'm impressed.
it's like saying, hey, what Jim Harbaugh looked like when the LA Chargers offered him a contract. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, that was him flying back to sign the extension, is what I was told by Chris
Oh
Ballard. He was
gosh.
flying
Oh
back
my
to
God.
sign that, right?
Well,
I
let's talk
can't
about just
wait.
how spectacularly wrong has the Michigan beat been on just
Whew.
everything. And my question to you, because Kirk and I go back and forth on this, are in your opinion, are they intentionally are they just lying, or are they being fed bad information and they're just spewing bad information? Because we go back and forth on, are they liars or are they just bad information getters? And what camp do you fall in on this?
I mean, they've the blue wall up there, right, has always been such a real thing, and you get the information, that the university has the pleasure of giving you. Um, I think it probably started as they were just getting bad information, and then the further this thing went off the rails, you know, by the time people saw how deep the mud was, right, they were looking backwards, right? You can't correct that. Um, and we over at 11 Warriors, we pick on Chris Ballas a lot. He's called Boob Salsa over there. There's a really great story, and I don't want to take credit for it as to how. So that's we call him that. I don't know. I probably owe him a beer at some point if I ever find myself up north again. But what really got to me is, he's been dug in, so dug in with information that's obviously coming from, someone in Ward's office, Connor Stallion, and Uncle T, right? Like those are his three main sources. I think you look at their interactions, it's pretty clear that's what happens. But he had been so dug in on our reporting as what was on the table being so crazy, right? Like they've never talked about vacating wins, which was a lie. They've never talked about a bowl ban, which was a lie. And then 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden he goes, well, no one's mentioned a postseason ban except for at the very beginning when we broke this story. And that's when they were just grossly overreaching at the beginning. And that's when I was like, all right, Chris, now you're taking credit for the story that we broke on 11 Warriors. And you spent the last year telling everyone how wrong we are, right? So as people look at, what's more likely to happen, like we said a million times, nobody knows. But I've been pretty comfortable in what I expect, and those decisions are fact based, and I've presented those facts. The people up north, whether they're just being fed information or lying, or probably a combination of both, their expectations keep shifting. Ours have remained consistent, and I don't think that trend's going to change.
Well, it's funny because the latest thing that they're hanging on to, they always have their kind of little talisman that they kind of hang on to. And first it was Charlie Baker's out of context comments about they won fair and square, and that became like they gripped onto that like with grim death. They were hanging on to that one. But there was an interview with Ward Manuel by one of the yokels up there, and he asked him, and he asked, they were talking around all these other issues, and he finally got to asking the question, and he's like, well, I got asked this question, this thing about, a few months ago, you said there was nothing on the table for about bowl bans or vacated wins. Is that still your position? And Ward Manuel very tellingly said, from our perspective, yes. Which I
A
thought
perfect
was,
opportunity for a
yeah,
yes or no answer.
yeah, yes
You
or no,
couldn't do it.
from our
If you haven't
perspective,
watched
yes. It's like, oh, okay, okay.
if you haven't watched that video, go watch it. And this is I've never seen two people look less comfortable on camera discussing a topic. And like I watched the Tom Cruise Today Show interview when he hopped up on the couch and accused Matt Lauer of being glib. Like I've seen a lot of bad interviews, right? It just comes with the territory. Neither of them, they wanted to crawl out of their skin when they were asking that question, and their refusal again to give a straight answer, like, all right, that'll keep the locals happy, that'll give Chris another month of $10 subscriptions, let's try to keep that rolling as much as possible. But man, they had plenty of tells watching that.
Yeah, that was bad. That was really,
Oh.
it was just fun. It was funny though how they could look at that and some other like, oh, that was good. That was good. Did you hear Ward in? And I'm like, guys, guys, read the room, guys. I don't. That was not a good one right there, man. That was not a good one. And I also feel like coming out of that hearing, the 2-day hearing, if there had been any positivity for Michigan, believe me, Connor Stalions could not shut up. I mean, not that he would say it directly, but he would be talking to his operatives, and you'd be hearing all sorts of just a nonstop, verbal, vomit of how much the NCAA was apologizing to them, and this was no big deal, and
They
they're
took
going to
us
get
to
away
St.
with it.
Elmo's for dinner.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly, exactly. Little what drunken cokes around and everything else like that,
Oh
or
yeah.
drunken chair, whatever those things are. But I mean,
Yeah.
no, none of that. Like absolutely none of that. So I'm just like, that's very interesting. But yeah, no, it's gonna be great. And the only sad thing is that this one's gonna have to end. But even when it ends, you've alluded to stuff going on beyond this. We absolutely believe that there'll be more stuff to come. Um, for Michigan, I think the Matt Weiss investigation has got so many different things. That's going to be the gift that keeps on giving, because when you talk about wanting to get to the bottom of what really happened and what was really going on, that one, um, I think I probably know about 10% of what was going on with that. But that story, that's another story that I don't think has gotten, I mean, because when that story came out initially, that thing got buried so quickly, and Matt Weiss went off the grid to wherever they sent him to. And that's and now just recently it's popped back up into the public consciousness, and people are kind of cluing into how heinous that story is. But there's a lot to unfold there regarding Matt Weiss. And anything you want to share regarding Matt Weiss, or at least your perspectives on the Matt Weiss thing that you think is topical?
I think as that trial actually gets started, that process moves slow. I think we're going to start to see the overlap where, Ann Arbor police came out and made an unequivocal statement that the Connor Stallions NCAA investigations and the Matt Weiss investigations were completely unrelated. And a sticking point for me and the information that we've gathered and that we've sourced and that I feel really comfortable in is that while one obviously is criminal, one is, by law violation, there's overlap there that hasn't really come out yet into how much did the university learn about impropriety in the athletics office when they had to bring in an external IT contractor to hack into Matt Weiss's devices when he was put on leave, right? That wasn't just gross pictures of co-eds, and there will be more on this um, as that goes on. And I know, Nevada, you and I have had some pretty gross conversations on, like, we've gotten these tips about this aspect of the white stuff. What do you think? Um, Nothing that can be reported yet, but I don't know where this thing stops. I think it's pretty clear that, you know, if you're just looking for nudes, they're out there. You can just find them without having to commit so many felonies. I think the next thing we'll learn is, what was the motivation there beyond just that primal pull, right? Like, there's more there, and it's, we joke about it. It's victimized, thousands of young people. I'm a father of four. I've got two daughters in high school. Like, this is gross. We're not going to take any joy in reporting on that. Um, but unfortunately, it's another piece of evidence that this was an athletics department that was out of control. This was a football coaching staff that was pushed up the line and then pushed over it. Do whatever you need to do to win football games. I think that opened a lot of doors for other bad activities, and we're seeing that now. And that story is just getting started. That's nowhere close to being finished.
Well, there's an old saying, what success has many fathers and failures an orphan. But and I'm sure there are many fathers to the investigation, but do you think at its core, the Weiss investigation was the seed corn for the entire NCAA thing? Or do you believe that just happened to be a coincidence that there's two major things that was going on at Michigan at the same time?
So, no, I am firm in my understanding that the NCAA investigation was not kicked off based on the Weiss investigation, right? That was a whistleblower who, engaged with an outside investigative firm, completed that investigation, and then the firm took that to the NCAA and said, here's all your evidence, hammer them, right? Um, where I think the overlap is in that you had a football coaching staff who was being allowed on the regular to violate or otherwise operate outside of university IT standards in the way their devices and their access worked. There were, at minimum, we believe, indications of other impropriety that the university became aware of as part of the Weiss investigation. None of that was self-reported to the NCAA. How much the university investigated that? Did they learn about the scheme or what was going on at that time? I don't know. I can't say that, with any certainty. But there's overlap there. So it's not a coincidence that they both are happening around the same time. But I think, if there's any responsible grown-ups left calling shots in Ann Arbor, they really wish they just would have self-reported and turned it over, whenever they finally got around to calling police after they lost that playoff game on Weiss. They could have ripped the Band-Aid off then. They could have been at least 1 year into their rebuild now, past the sanctions and moving on. But because the people in charge prioritized winning instead of doing what's right, they're just now looking down the barrel of that process instead of looking at the backside of it.
Yeah, that was something that's most stunning to me is that they didn't take action last year. Because again, I was on staff in 2011 and we were 6-6, and I was like, "Can we please not play in this Gator Bowl and just shut her down?" Because we knew the coaching staff knew they were fired. So again, if you want to be around miserable people, like try keeping your job, like I did and Mike Vrabel did and Fickle did, and then you've got 6 guys that are done. You're counting down the hours before they're out of the building, and the awkwardness is palpable. So that's like that bowl ban was something that was crazy we didn't do. We have a ton of super chats, Nevada. I don't know if you want to wrap anything up before we get into these because there's about
Well,
about
well, I
six.
think I say we get to the super chats because otherwise,
This
we're
will
gonna
take
keep we're gonna keep Drum here all night. And he's gonna be like,
oh
dude,
no,
I'm
never
never doing your
again.
show again. Never
No,
again.
oh
Exactly.
no.
Exactly.
I want to get him out of
Oh,
here in a timely manner. But yeah, this has been incredible.
oh,
So I
you
just
know, I
appreciate
could
it.
I could talk about this stuff all night, man. I love the
Oh,
Michigan stuff, but yeah, let's get to the super chats. Let's go.
all right. Francis Plumix for the 7. Do you think non-compliance by Michigan is to not divulge information that could incriminate them, as in let the big house burn is better than prison? Premier Drum, I'll let you take a crack at that. And I'll say it one more time. Do you think non-compliance by Michigan is to not divulge information that could incriminate them, as in let the big house burn is better than prison? What is your thought on that?
Well, I think that's obviously what key individuals decided to do, right? They couldn't see the university as more important than themselves, right? And that's a shame when you get people in power who prioritize, their own future track, their own ego over the institution they're supposedly serving, right? Um, So that does look like it's the decision that they made, but unfortunately, the big house isn't going to burn. Someone else is going to have to go in there and try to clean up another mess. Um, and I worked in TV during Tattoo Gate, right? I remember I was running the assignment desk when we got the video of Terrell Pryor coming to that team meeting and that 350Z, right? And everyone was like, "Oh God, what the hell are we doing here?" I worked in TV and did a lot of affiliate work when the Jerry Sandusky stuff went down at Penn State. And I was fresh out of TV, but still way too plugged in and paying attention to things, when the urban stuff happened with, Zach Smith and all that. So like, these aren't outliers. Like there's a pattern of what happens, and it's difficult to compare these three scenarios. What happened to Michigan, what happened at Penn State, what happened at Ohio State. But there are a lot of similar situations, and it's where, poor decisions compounded with more poor decisions eventually leads to a catastrophic outcome. And that outcome has never really been avoidable. Like you get to a point and it's just going to happen. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
Nevada, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's just they've been doubling down. They got married to a narrative, and they've been doubling down. But it's interesting you mentioned the Sandusky thing, because the Sandusky, you go back and look at the penalties that Penn State got. I know a lot of that stuff was rolled back, and they walked back, and the NCAA, said after they rolled them back that they never felt they didn't have the authority to do it. But it was vacated wins for 13 years, 4-year postseason ban, $50 million fine, cut of 20 scholarships a year. That had nothing to do with ineligible players.
Nothing to
That
do with anything that happened on the field.
Nothing happened with the field. It was just an unprecedented, nasty scandal. And Penn State, I mean, that would definitely be the hammer right there. 13 years. So like when Michigan fans say, "Oh, the NCAA can't do this," no, they did it. And that's the only one that I can think of that even draws a parallel to this one. And like you said, that had nothing to do with the field. This is directly cheating on the field. Um, and Penn State got it good, so I have no reason to believe Michigan won't.
Yeah, I agree. B Moses, thank you for the 5, brother. Appreciate you. Make sure you guys check out our boy B Moses and Funky on Sunday nights, 6 p.m. They lead right into our 7 o'clock show. B Moses kills it. Appreciate you, brother. Glad to see Premier Drum on the show tonight, even though there are some who hate that he came on here. Oh, God. But they'll get over it. Nevada, are we ever going to recover from the fact that there are people that are going to be upset that Premier Drum joined us tonight? Or no?
Look, I just wanted to recognize excellence, man. I don't care where it
Yeah.
is. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's at a different site or a different thing or what. And look, if there was a Michigan guy that was rational, that had insight or whatever wanted to talk about. I mean, how do we get married to Spiro? Spiro's a Michigan State guy. We're not like exactly bosom buddies with Michigan State, but that Spiro's been killing the game. I mean, Spiro
Yeah.
broke the fact that Connor Stalions was on the sideline of at least one game and working on others. He broke the fact that Sharon Moore deleted text. I mean, he's clearly sourced up. He's a true investigative journalist. And Premier Drum stuff has been equally as good. And so we wanted to have him on here. And if people got ticked off about it, something, whatever, whatever. But we're glad that he's here, and I found this entire evening very riveting, and I appreciate him being here.
Premier, do you have anything to say to that?
Real quick on that, I want to make it clear that the 11 Warriors homestead is good. Some of the people who may have not appreciated this appearance, we spoke last night, we spoke this morning, like, hey, this is an opportunity to come on with a new audience and talk about some of this incredible work that our little team of that we call ourselves, message board idiots, has done, right? And I think we should also recognize that the University of Michigan, they call themselves the leaders and best, and in at least one way, they have done something that I thought was impossible. They have united college football fandom like never before. I'm suddenly like, I see someone in a Michigan State shirt and I'm like, that's right, Michigan sucks, right? Like, I mean, we were in Florida last week and you see somebody with Bama, Georgia, Clemson, Penn State. You're like, hey, you're not so bad. Like, we can all get together, roast a marshmallow and say, God, Michigan's horrible.
Yeah. It is amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's like nobody's that bad anymore compared to what all the stuff they did. And again, it's not just us saying that. I mean, the coaches, the athletic directors. I mean, it's literal crazy town at this point. All right, next one. Matty Bucks, thanks for the 10 preachers, man. If Sharon Moore is no longer the head coach after the penalties are handed down, does a portal window open for the roster this season? Premier, I believe that is, if coaches gets fired or leaves, it opens up. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that is one of the reasons that we thought maybe they had pushed to delay this as long as they did, was trying to get stuff cleaned up. They've got to strike while the iron's hot before Larry Ellison gets remarried, and so they got to retain all these guys, while they have them. But yes, that is what happens. The head coach leaves a program for any circumstance. The portal window opens, and so the one question, and I've just not gotten great answers on this, is the NCAA bylaws are clear that an appeal does not discontinue the punishments from taking effect, right? So I don't know how that would work like retroactively, because the NCAA appeals process, you never win, but they drag it out forever. So if that would just say, oh, we can't start the clock yet because you did decide to appeal, I can't speak, from a really comfortable point to explain how that would work. But yes, Coach Moore goes out and gives us either Biff or Tony Alford. I can't figure out which one of those I'd enjoy more as the interim head coach. Then yes, the portal is open and you will not be able to find a rental car leaving Ann Arbor.
You really won't. Maurice Clarinet, thanks for the 20. Yesterday, Bro Ohio and 22 Buck on 11 Warriors were saying not to expect the hammer, not to trust Scoop. Now they're claiming that Nevada fabricates sources. That's a pretty serious accusation. Just lying to attack Scoop. Jealous, maybe? Nevada, I'll let you respond to that. I'll let Premiers talk about that.
Well, look, I like Brohio. I like Brohio's a cool guy. My only point on what Brohio's been saying is it's his opinion. His opinion's never changed on this from the very beginning. He thinks the NCAA's fairly impotent and won't come down with them because of their impotence. But he's not saying this because he's got some scoop or some insight or some breaking news. It's his opinion, and he's entitled to. And you know what? There's a chance he's right. He could be right. No, we don't know 100% in terms of what. I don't think he's right. I'd be willing to bet that he's not right. But that's his opinion. 22 Buck. I'll just leave that one there. I don't even know this thing. 22 Buck has got this thing about saying he attributes stuff to us that we didn't say, and then he refutes it. Though, but I know he's part of the four horsemen of 11 Warriors, and I'm not going to get into. I'm happy that we have Premier Drum here. I like Brohio works. I think Josh Moon is a really really smart guy, and they do good work. And if you guys want to follow along in terms of that, you guys go over to that site and read that stuff. Nothing wrong with that. There's some really good stuff on this, and that's why we did this. Michigan's the common enemy. We're not the enemy. The Ohio State sites can put aside the site wars for a little bit. I mean, we're focused on the bigger prize, which is the evil empire, which is Mordor. And I'm like Bilbo Baggins, just trying to drag my Kirk. I'm trying to drag the Gollum, the Kirk Barton, with me there over to the thing, and Samwise Premier Drum is coming along here, and we're just trying to just try to kill them all. But I don't know why we didn't just take the Eagles. Why didn't we just fly the Eagles over there and drop the ring in the first place? I don't understand. If the Eagles could fly there and take you out, why couldn't they fly you in? Somebody explain to me why we didn't take the Eagles in the first place.
I'm so dead. Premier Drum, any response to that? That was amazing.
Yeah. For me, what I think is unique about our little project we've been putting together is our information doesn't line up 100% of the time. And that's a good thing. That means we are working so many different channels, talking to so many different people, and iron sharpens iron, right? So, when something, we say gets refuted or something they say doesn't line up with what I have, we go back and we ask more questions and try to suss it out. This is so complex and involves a huge amount of time, a huge amount of people, a huge amount of effort. It's going to take a long time, right, to put the Charlie string board together from It's Always Sunny. But I couldn't have asked for a better, more involved group of guys to be doing this with. It's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like we're comfortable. Like, I mean, we've recognized, Berm and other guys from other sides, because if someone does something good or we think someone's good, then we're the first ones to say it. Now, again, we're not waiting on someone to, like, redistribute those compliments, but like, we're just comfortable. Like, I don't care. Like, if someone's doing great work somewhere else, like, it doesn't, you can eat and we can eat and we'll be just as happy. So I love it. Nick Ma, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Best guess at the next Michigan coach. If I was suspended from work for a year, if I knew that was coming, I would be fired. Premier Jim, I'll let you go with this one first, because again, this is it's tough. Obviously, there's the usual suspects, the Matt Campbells and whatever that could be the next guy that has to clean up the mess. But what are your thoughts on who potentially could be the next Michigan coach if Sharon is indeed gone?
I'll take Matt Campbell as the next guy, right? I think there's going to be someone who just has to come in and be, coach/janitor and focus on cleaning up, right? I don't know who the next guy is going to be. I think a program of that magnitude, once it's cleaned up, will be able to attract a top name again. I have no guess. I think the interim is what's going to be the entertaining one, because there just aren't good options there.
Nevada, any thoughts?
I'm going to go with Jay Harbaugh. I'm going to go Fredo Harbaugh will be the next head coach there. Fredo will just kind of continue the Harbaugh.
Yeah. This just in. They just received another notice of allegations for whatever shit Jay's going to do. They already know they're going to go ahead and preemptively get that started.
It's already leaked. Uncle T.
Fredo.
Get
Fredo,
Uncle T on the coaching staff.
Why were you sending Venmos to Scott Stallions, Fredo? What were you doing? What was that all about? Come on. Oh my goodness gracious.
Talk about being a zero with shoes. That's amazing. Wow. We always have great names on the show. I don't know if you've ever seen our show before, Premier Drum, but it's like we have some very creative people on here. So Jerry Imig, what do you do is the screen name. Thank you for the 5. I mean, I love we have the greatest audience on earth. I swear to God. Load Warriors, folks, talking some BS. Who is the Humping Edition and why are they coming after Nevada? Appreciate you coming, PD, but Ohio and 22 are nuts. And again, like I don't have any beef with any of those guys. I don't really care. I mean, I know 22 doesn't like us, but they're not really relevant unless we talk about them. Ohio, I think it's been fine. So I it's a great question. It's a little redundant. We kind of addressed it earlier, but I appreciate you. And again, you've got another one coming in. So Jeremy, what do you do? Again, thanks for the 5. Who the F are 22 Buck and Ohio anywhere? Never heard of them before recently. So I mean, I don't know. Like I mean, like I said, Nevada and I, we don't have enough hours in the day to do all the stuff that we need to do. So again, we appreciate guys like Premier Drum coming on here. Premier Drum, do you have any? Go ahead, Nevada.
I just want to say that when somebody says something mean about me, it hurts me very deeply. And
deeply.
So, deeply. So please, anybody that's out there, please do not say anything mean about me because it affects me greatly and it makes me sad. So if you could please not say anything mean about Nevadabuck. Hashtag pray for Nevada. Don't say anything mean about Nevada. Just like a week or something like that. Don't say anything bad about Nevada. Can we all agree on that?
Honestly, I will light a candle for you at church, but I will say that there are times that people say like really nasty and mean stuff about me, and it's some of it's like so good that I actually laugh at it. I think it's pretty funny. I almost want to say like Kirk Barton is a felon. I'm like, dude, like when did I commit a felony? When did I ever get booked for? I mean, or they say crazy stuff about me. I was like, that's actually pretty funny, So it's like I hate that I like actually enjoy that people they sit in their basements and they're I'm gonna get them good and they'll write something hilarious. I'm like, that's actually pretty good. So I don't know. And so I hope that they don't stop because it's always amusing to me. Premier Drum, do you have anything to add to our insanity?
Oh man, so I've worked with high school age musicians for 21 years, and so you're not going to get on their level. Like if they want to get to you, they'll get to you. I did the 11 Warriors podcast last fall and the best the Michigan people would come up with were making fun of my man bun. I'm like, I'm 40 with a full head of hair, man. Shut up. Wake up earlier tomorrow and try harder.
Oh God, it's so great. I love it because I think some of the people that hate me are actually really funny and creative. So it's like I'm here for it, baby. I'm all about entertainment value. Matt Patel, thanks for the 10. Any truth to the rumors that more than a few Fortune 500s are rescinding offers to Michigan grads especially for Michigan athletes. 3M did it very quietly, but are others following? I have not heard that at all. Premier Drum, Nevada, anything on, and that would be a little extreme when it's Connor Science, with the Ray-Ban sunglasses on. I don't know if that's going to cost a summa cum laude graduate from the Ross School of Business a job, but it could. I mean, anything can happen. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. This seems a little extreme that, a used vacuum salesman could have that big of an effect at Fortune 500 companies. But this is a good chance. I'm going to say go back and read Josh Moon's work and what he's reporting from the non-athletic side at Michigan, and how this has taken its toll, and what's going on up there.
Nevada, any thoughts on Fortune 500 companies rescinding Michigan
Yeah,
offers? That'd be amazing.
I think Fortune 500. I've heard some Fortune 500 companies are actually going away from college graduates in general, going for people just because. I mean, there's some baggage that comes along with that. But I haven't heard anything specific to Michigan. But I do have a question for Premier Drum, kind of related on this. I know we're on super chats, but why you think that if Connor Stallions committed a felony by forging um eh, uh, what was
Blake
I'm so
Blake
Corum.
sorry.
Corum.
Blake Corum.
Blake Torm's name on this on the LLC document. Sorry, guys. So on the LLC documents, why are they celebrating? Why would they continue to have him around the program? And if this guy committed a felony by almost creating an eligibility event for him, why why is that okay? Where does that fit into the fact pattern?
It's almost like he didn't commit a crime. It's
Almost,
almost like he
almost,
knew about it, right? If I didn't know any better.
almost,
Um,
almost.
yeah, that one, I don't know. I've said for a while that I didn't expect the NCAA to touch that, because that is, you're getting into, yes, it's a rule where the player and a coach or an analyst shouldn't be in business together, right? That's pretty clear. But then, are you wading into that? Are you impeding the athlete's um, right to profit off their name, image, and likeness? And so, I don't know that they need that case. If they needed that case to prove ineligibility, then I think they would have gone forward with it. It seems pretty straightforward. You either committed, an NCAA bylaw infraction, or you committed a felony by using the shadiest LLC licensure company possible. You flew out to Wyoming, saw the park, signed a document, and drove back in your Camaro to your apartment complex. But I don't know. I don't know that one. We'll get the truth. We'll get the truth on that eventually, and we'll all be like, "Oh, okay, we weren't that far off."
I mean, and I'll say this to sort of keep this thing moving, but like the amount of insanity you would have to start an LLC when you're like a low level staffer with your star All American running back. Like if I was some intern and I was like, I'm gonna Ezekiel Elliott, let's sell vacuums together, and then jeopardize his eligibility. Like that's like a different level. Like again, like Urban Meyer didn't even want us to be in the same. He's like, if you're at any bar and any player show up, you have to leave. Like, I mean, again, I was 25, 26, 27. Like when I was, so I mean, I wasn't that old. So it's like you go downtown and a bunch of guys walk in. It's like the rule is you have to leave or else you're done. So like I was like, so I'm staying home. Looks like go to Roosters, but I don't know. It just that was like the craziest thing ever to me that Blake Corum played dumb, and then there was not really a lot of follow up on it. So. Carrie Gamalo, thank you for the 5. Appreciate you. When the NCAA vacates Scum's 50 wins from 2021 to 2023, guess who becomes the new leader in all-time wins? Yeah, baby, Nevada OH. That'll be wonderful for us. So yeah, that'll be the Bucks win again, baby. So all right, Nevada, let's wrap this thing up. Premier Drum will give you the floor for a closing statement. Again, I cannot thank you enough. This has been one of the best episodes we've ever done. You're absolutely amazing, and this has been awesome. But I really appreciate your time. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you guys for having me. This has been a crazy exercise, but what I want to people you see from certain social media users up north, and your team, Ohio State, just won the national championship, and you're focused on this. I want to make everyone rest easy tonight, knowing that we enjoyed the hell out of that run. My son is going into 8th grade, and the Tennessee playoff game was his first real game at Ohio Stadium. He's been to the spring game before. He's around the band a lot because of what we do. We have a
Yeah.
ton of former students in Biddle, but that was his first real game, like real big game experience at the Horseshoe, and that was just incredible. And so I look not just where we are now, where we've had some bumps that don't feel very good, but I look at the trajectory of what we get to look at as Ohio State fans versus what our rival gets to look at. What does our future look like? What does their future look like? Never been more comfortable to put on the scarlet and gray, right, and go, watch them dot the I, watch ramp, and watch all our guys come out in the cold with their shirts on, which is more than some other teams were able to do. So
I love
it's
it.
it's been a really, really fun experience. I don't plan on staying in this business long. This has been a lot. I had no idea what this was going to turn into. I was just making phone calls, sending text messages, and being some idiot on a message board. And at the end of the day, nothing I've reported or our group at 11 Warriors or Nevada's reported, none of that is consequential. And so when we get this misdirected anger from some of their fans, like, but we didn't do this to you. The committee's not interviewing us to write their case, right? Your people did this to you. And you still look at the coach who put you in this position as some, untouchable icon, like he's autistic Bear Bryant or something. And it's just, look inward, and figure out what you need to do, because you should be capable of holding your people accountable. We've been through it here. Some of our other, conference members have been through it. But without your pressure, they have no incentive to make that hard call.
That's perfectly put. Nevada, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank Premier Drum for coming on, and just thank you for all the great work. And like I said, you can find them at 11 Warriors. They've done a great job on this Michigan scandal. And like I said, one of our prize tenets on our show here is that we always give you the truth, and we want to recognize excellence wherever it is. And you guys do a great job on it, and keep up the good work on it. I'm sure we'll continue collaborating, and maybe we'll have you back sometime after the final verdict is issued, and we can go back through the 1,000 pages of I can't wait to read the
Yes.
NCAA decision
Oh
on
my
this
God.
one. This is, I mean, that is, oh my God, that's going to be like the first time that I watched Sin City with Jessica Alba or something like that. That's going to be a great time for me. So yeah,
Blue Crush.
oh
Ooh,
my
Nevada needs a
goodness.
cold shower.
Oh,
Oh
it's like,
man. Oh man.
like
Woo.
when Nevada was
Into the
an
deep.
executive producer on Wild Things. Can we do that scene again,
I
please?
know. I know. I know. That was good. That was a good movie. That was one of our best movies, man. That was good stuff. But
I
yeah.
know
But
what you did
anyway,
last summer. Yeah.
and if you're listening to the show, help us on our drive to 40,000 subscribers. We hit that subscribe button. Click, 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 click. It nice and it's easy. It's free. Get on that. We always bring you the inside stuff, the good information, and great guests like Premier Drum. So thank you again for coming on tonight.
Yeah. I appreciate you, my dude. And again, we'll get the smoking jackets ordered, so we'll do like a marathon where we go through the pages and highlight them, and it'll be spectacular. I cannot wait. So, well, with that being said, I'll wrap this thing up. As always, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, appreciate Premier Drum coming on, killing the game. 11 Warriors, they've done a great job during the scandal. So, real recognizes real, and it's awesome to have him on. We'll have him on again, I'm sure. If you guys enjoy this, again, we have been on this drive to 40,000 on YouTube. Click subscribe, completely free, and it takes 2 seconds and helps us dramatically, along with Apple Podcasts. If you guys have an iPhone, an iPad, get in the podcast app, type in Buckeye Scoop, click subscribe. Humongous help for us as we're growing what we do. So, I just so thrilled. What a great show. What a great audience. Thank you for the fantastic super chats. Those go to Pay It Forward. As always, we signed up a ton of new Pay It Forward members this week. And also our store is reopened because a lot of people missed out. And again, I'm gonna kind of pull back a little bit here and show you. I mean, this is incredible. Like our national championship drop, Buckeye Scoop. Let me get the mic out of the way. One for the ages. This is the Carhartt one. We do a regular one. The Carhartt runs a touch big, so you might want to size down. I've got a 3XL on. It fits absolutely perfect. All I wear is 3XL, but I'm shrinking a little bit, so I might be in a 2XL pretty quick here. But repthescoop.com. The link is in the bio. Again, just incredible quality. Now, we got the United States flag on the sleeve. Carhartt makes great hoodies. I mean, they're my favorite hoodies, better than Nike, better than Under Armour, in my opinion. So again, rep the scoop. But I mean, you want to get your national championship gear. This is the last time we'll offer the national championship merchandise. You'll have it in time for summer and then into the fall. Again, because we're the national champion until they crown the next one next February, and it might be us again. So again, repthescoop.com, and the link will be in the bio as well. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Leave some comments down below. I want to hear what you liked about this thing. I thought this was one of our best episodes we've ever done, and I appreciate you guys all being on here. And tomorrow night, Devin, Mello, they're going to do Pops Pod with Devin Sanchez's father, Daniel, and also Duke Patajon. It's going to be a great show. So, guys, make sure you tune in for that tomorrow. It'll be a fantastic show. So, as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.